The climate crisis is one of the greatest challenges of our time, and this disproportionately affects women and girls. Good morning, Madam Vice President, Young African Network for Global Goals, Mr. President, National President for Young African Network for Global Goals, the Gambia, Honorable National Assembly Member for Banjul Central, Honorable Abdullah Njai, Honorable National Assembly Member for Banjul South, Ma'am Fatumata Tumanjai. I have the singular honor and pleasure to welcome you to this very august gathering. I am Lamin Jai, the Executive Secretary of Young the Gambia, and I will be your host today. This gathering today, which is the Women and Girls Climate Conference, Banjul 2025, it's organized purposely to look at issues, climate issues, affecting us. Most importantly, to look at the role played by women and girls in addressing this. In Africa, climate-related vulnerabilities include food insecurity, health crisis, and restricted access to resources, challenges that women and girls mostly face acutely. Yet, women and girls remain at the heart of climate resilience. Across Africa, they lead grassroots initiatives, champion sustainable practices, and influence advocacy that drives influence. The Young African Global Network, or the Young African Network for Global Goals, which goes by the acronym YOUNG, is a conglomerate of young Africans who came together to fight or to support and promote the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals, which are 17 goals. And today we are here to address one of these, Goal 13, climate action. In our midst, we have the member of the High Table. We're supposed to have Deputy Mayor, who is our host in this institution today. But due to some other engagements, he's going to join us later in the day. Now, I would like to give you a brief rundown of the program itinerary that we have today. First and foremost, which is of course the arrival and registration, to be done through the national anthem, which will be followed by a welcoming address by our national president, Deputy Mayor Aziz Gay, distinguished partners and sponsors, the Young Gambia Board and members, esteemed participants, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Young African Network for Global Goals, Young Gambia, it is with profound joy and gratitude that I welcome you all to the Women and Girls Climate Conference 2025 Grand Finale here in the beautiful city of Banjul, the Gambia. For those I have not yet had the pleasure of meeting, My name is Lamin Desmond Koli, President of Young Gambia, and it is both my honor and privilege to stand before you today. Today is not just another gathering. It is a historic convergence of vision, courage, and leadership. We are deeply honored by our host, the Lord Mayoress of Banjul, Rohey Malick Lowe, whose tireless leadership and unwavering commitment to inclusive development and climate justice continues to inspire us all. Madam Mayoress, we salute your dedication and we thank you for opening your city's doors to this movement. We also extend our heartfelt appreciation to our partners and sponsors, Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisors, Bloomberg Philanthropies, Banjul City Council, United Cities and local governments, and the Bloomberg Center for Public Innovation at Johns Hopkins University. Your support is not only instrumental, but transformational, enabling women and girls to stand at the forefront of climate action. To our participants, women, girls, youth leaders, policymakers, activists, and innovators from across Africa and beyond, your presence here is a powerful reminder that climate justice cannot and will not be achieved without your voices, your knowledge, and your leadership. Ladies and gentlemen, this conference is more than a meeting. It is a movement of resilience, innovation, and transformation. Together, we are not just anticipating change. We are shaping it, rewriting the story of climate justice, and building a future that belongs to all of us. On behalf of Young Gambia, I say welcome. Let us rise together to ensure that the Women and Girls Climate Conference 2025 becomes a milestone in our collective journey toward a just, sustainable, and inclusive future. Thank you all for your kind attention.
Good morning. The Global President of the Young Africans Network for Global Goals, His Excellency President Kelechi Njeze, the Lord Mayoress of Banjul, Her Worship Rohey Malick Lowe, the National President of Young Gambia, His Excellency Mr. Lamin Desmond Koli, the Honorable Member for Banjul North, the Honorable Member for Banjul South, and the Honorable Member for Banjul Central, members of the press, fellow youths, comrades, ladies and gentlemen, greetings to you all. As mentioned by the host, I am Erike Baji, the Global Vice President of the Young Africans Network for Global Goals, YOUNG. Maybe most of you, because of the structure of our organization, might not understand how comes we have a global president and a national president. Young Gambia is an international organization. So Young Global is an international organization, and we have branches across all countries in Africa. Like every country in Africa has a Young chapter. So in every chapter, there is a national president that coordinates all the activities and affairs of Young in that country. And also at global level, we have a board executive that comprises of all other country representatives under one umbrella that is called the Young Global. That's why we have a global president, we have a global vice, and we also have country presidents and country vice. Ladies and gentlemen, today is a very memorable day and it's a historic moment for every youth, especially Banjulians. Climate action is a very sensitive and a very serious issue that needs special consideration. We might tend to deviate our attentions mostly in other engagements or other activities that are related or affecting us as young people or us as women and girls. But climate is also a key function in our journey of life. If we are not careful or paying attention to what is happening within our environment or around us, ladies and gentlemen, please permit me to welcome Mr. Latir to the high table, sir, please. And Latir is the project manager for this conference. And he has been very helpful in guiding us throughout the entire process. I really want to say thank you so much, sir, for your guidance and for always considering the youth of Banjul. Thank you so much and you're welcome. Like I was saying, the Women and Girls Conference is very dear to our hearts because whatever happens within our society and in the country or globally at large, women and girls tend to be the most victimized and the people that mostly and likely suffer the most consequences in everything that we do. This is why we decided to come up with this gathering to make sure we share our ideas, bring our collective solutions together to see how best to tackle all the challenges that we are faced and that they are caused by climate change. Today's event is going to be a very special one because we are not only going to be reading and speaking and sending speeches, but also we will be giving chance to each and every one of us to share your ideas, share your thoughts, or share your recommendations or what you think could be potential solutions to today's event and in our daily challenges that we face caused by climate change. Ladies and gentlemen, I will not bore you further with a lot of speeches. Despite the critical role of women and girls often face system barriers from limited resources to education, technology, and decision-making platforms. These barriers are not just unjust, they are dangerous to our collective efforts to combating climate change. When half the population is marginalized, the whole society loses. At the Young Africans Network for Global Goals, we believe that gender equality and climate action are inseparable. We strive to amplify the voices of young women across Africa, ensuring that their leadership shapes policies, projects, and partnerships that respond to our climate realities. This conference serves as a powerful platform to share a series of resilience and innovation, from grassroots activities transforming communities with renewable energy to sustain the advocacy of climate action and climate change in general. Entrepreneurs creating sustainable livelihoods. These narratives shows us the solutions lies not in science and technology, but also in empathy, inclusion, and courage. But talking is not enough. We must act, and we must act together. Invest in education and training that women equally and girls the skills and confidence to lead climate solutions. Ensure equal access to resource, finance, and technology that, however, sustainable development will be collectively achieved. Include women and girls equally, partners in climate policies at every level, from local, council, and global forums. Challenges and challenge faced through social media, norms, structures that that perpetuate inequality in our environment causes a lot of destruction. And in so doing, most of these women and girls might not be more focused on the things that really is meant for them. Before I conclude, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to all who made it possible for today's event. To the media, thank you for your tireless effort in amplifying our messages and keeping our voices well heard and informed throughout the world.
Where policymakers and young people came together to discuss issues affecting young people in Africa and beyond.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, all of you on the high table. Honorable, pleasure seeing you again after a while. I am Latif Kar. I'm the city lead for Bloomberg's Youth Climate Action Fund and a couple of other Bloomberg projects. I'd like to clarify branding issues so we all get it. A lot of people confuse Bloomberg with Bloombank. So it's Bloomberg with BRG. It's very important we get the branding right. So Bloomberg Philanthropies is probably the biggest philanthropic organization in the world, owned by Mark Bloomberg, former mayor of New York, and one of the largest donators to projects and programs that support climate action in the world. Bloomberg, as a philanthropic organization, made a commitment to support youth-led and youth-centric change globally. And this has created a global reaction to change. I noticed recently the government received funding from the World Bank, and the funding is basically focused on youth-led and youth-centric change. That is what we're seeing globally. Whether it's the World Bank, whether it's the IMF, whether it's the EU, everybody is moving towards youth-centric and youth-led change. In the past, this wasn't the case. In the past, governments, organizations focused on traditional, conventional methods of change. But we have realized these changes are not sustainable. Changes are sustainable when they are led by those that feel the largest impact of that change. And that is people under the age of 35. And that's our Africa definition of youth. So that is why Bloomberg Philanthropies thought it best to support causes for change in climate action led by young people or centered around young people. For your information, this is the second phase of YCAF, and it's the second time that Banjul has qualified for a YCAF project. It is not a project. It is not a project that every city in the world is privileged to participate in. With the first phase, there were about 300 cities globally. You can imagine how many cities there are in the world who benefited from this. And that, I can say, was no doubt through the continued influence of the Lord Mayor of Banjul, Lord Mayor Rohey Malick Lowe. I came to know of Bloomberg through her. I started my work with Bloomberg YCAF, and since then, my ambition is to ensure that as much funding comes to the youth and women and girls of Banjul as possible. This conference is supposed to be one of the penultimate events for YCAF Phase 2. There are 19 projects benefiting from the YCAF fund. Out of these projects, some are data-centric, some of them are program-centric, some of them have cleaning elements, but the whole idea is to wake up the young people of Banjul on the effects and dangers of climate change and what we can do as a society to mitigate the impact. Banjul is one of the lowest lying cities in the world. Gambia as a country has one of the flattest landscapes in Africa. If there is even a degree rise in the ocean level, Banjul is gone. That's a reality that we have to face. And Banjul is not just important. Banjul is the center of development in the Gambia. They say when Banjul coughs, the whole country catches a cold. And that is a reality. It is the bedrock of our civilization. It is where we host our presidency. It is where our immigration headquarters are. It is where the Gambia Police Force head is. It is where the central bank is. Banjul is the nerve center of the Gambia. If we cannot save Banjul, it means we can do very little to save the Gambia. So that is why Banjul is very important to me. Raffaella, Bloomberg, BCC are one of the most important clients that I have as a management consultant. And the reason is this city is undercapacitated. I mean, Honorable would agree with me. Banjul has a lot of good sons and daughters that do not necessarily contribute to the development of Banjul. Banjul doesn't need Bloomberg to do this. They need Bloomberg to do YCAF. Some of the they might have moved and live in the Combos now, but if Banjul comes together as a city, as a traditional, conventional city, and decides that they want to have impactful change in this city, you do not need the World Bank or the IMF or the EU or even central government to make that happen. I don't see it happening now, but if we start instilling that idea as a seed in the minds of our young people aged 21, 22, 24, 28, 30, I believe in 10 years' time, Banjul will self-sustain development. It is possible. That is my vision. That is my goal as a management consultant. And I believe these are the little steps that we can take to make that happen. Ladies and gentlemen, honorable members of the High Table, I'm not going to bore you long. I'm excited for the deliberations that come on later. I hope the groups, the project managers are ready to share insights on how we can have impactful change in Banjul. At the end of phase 2 of this project, we will submit a white paper to the relevant ministries, informing them of our findings, making recommendations on what we think the city can do to better prepare for what's ahead. So that's why this conference is extremely important to me. It's the first step to that happening. I will hear what you have to say. The rapporteur will put together notes so that we can start preparing for a white paper that we feel would be well received by government, will be well received by the National Assembly, and all the relevant organizations supporting climate action in the city of Banjul. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening, and I wish you a successful.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Lateef. That was brief but insightful, okay? And then I think it is a public knowledge in the Gambia, widely heard across the country, that the Banjul is severe threat of being submerged. Just a 1% sea level rise. I think one Minister of Fisheries in 2019, if I can remember, in one of the newspapers, Point newspaper, was quoted to have said, just Henry Gomez, sea level rise, just 1 meter sea level rise will submerge 10% land area of Banjul, may God forbid. And this is going to be caused by heavy rainfalls. So climate change, affects all of us. And it's interesting to know that women and girls are found at the heart of this, because, being part of the most vulnerable groups of the society, always, crises like this, they are the mostly affected. So this is why this conference is very important, like Mr. Lateef mentioned here. People will listen to your feet, will gather this, and this will be submitted as a white paper for government action. So please, whatever that you think can be done to address climate change issues, not only in Banjul or in the Gambia, but across the continent, because the climate action global goal 13 of the Sustainable Development Goal, it's intended to address all climate issues across the world. So once again, thank you, Mr. Lateef, for that. At this juncture, I would like to recognize the presence of Honorable Member of Banjul North, Honorable Modu Lamin Biba. Please, welcome, sir. So, I want to give the floor to the honorable members to throw light on the topic today. These are policymakers. Their critical role in addressing this issue cannot be overemphasized. So therefore, their input
is very important. Because of this, we want to hear from them. If it's not working, no worry.
I'm sure he doesn't mind.
Very much. A very good morning to everyone. My name is Honorable Fatoumata Njie. I'm a member of Parliament representing Banjul South. And I wouldn't say Banjul South. I'm a member representing women and girls in the Gambia. Because I am one of only 3 elected female members and the only female member that was re-elected in 2022. So I stand here for the women and the girls of the Gambia. Talking about climate change is a very important matter. And the Bloomberg representative, as well as the Vice President, did illustrate on the importance of the conference today. Climate crisis is one of the most pressing issues of our times. Even though, as a least developed country, but we are bearing the greatest brunt of climate crisis. And like somebody mentioned just now, Gambia, we are nearly below sea level. And any effect in climate change would affect us adversely. And that is not what we wish. We would not want to see Banjul submerged eventually. We want to see our great-grandchildren see our capital city, Banjul. So I think we shouldn't just say we did not contribute, but we should say that we are going to protect our environment. Climate crisis threatens to reverse progress on human rights and sustainable development, and also worsens gender inequality. We are already facing inequality as women and girls, and this crisis worsens the situation. So we should be well conscious of the importance of climate crisis. I will not be long because we were not part of the agenda. We were just given the privilege to speak. So we are going to be here with you during the panel proceedings, and we will be able to contribute the little that we know, especially as members of Climate Parliament. Climate Parliament is a national organization with over 2,000 members of parliaments worldwide in over 40 different countries. And we are trying to make sure that climate effects are addressed adequately in our different parliaments. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Greetings to everyone. Assalamu alaikum. I would first and foremost like to thank the global president, the national president, national vice president, the entire Young Gambia Secretariat, groups here present, and all the distinguished, our distinguished brothers and sisters here present, and our consultant, Mr. Carr. It's an honor. I would keep it very short. I think Honorable Guy have actually, and also I know that this forum is very gender sensitive and specific, so it will come and overshadow the process. But as advocates for women in climate, and just to put a few words of the resilience of women, especially when it comes to areas in Banjul, like they mentioned, we are just a meter above sea level. If you understand that, just to put it in a layman's context, if at all there was flood, God forbid, if there was flood, just anything above a meter, we would all submerge. I think that is a huge cause of concern. And we know that also in Banjul, a lot of young people constitute of a large population here. But we also have elderly people who can't do the work, so we as young people should take up the mantle to make sure that we protect our city. So we thank the Bloomberg Project for facilitating and bringing these things home. Our responsibilities as young people is to make sure that we harness, this opportunity that is given to us, to make sure that we derive the maximum yield of this, whereby even after all these projects are phased out, the sustainability mechanism of holding it for ourselves and pushing it forward by ourselves, will be there and still in the working process ahead. As I think our work is mainly on legislation and policy. Mr. Carr has specifically mentioned of it that we will be working on presenting a white paper. We definitely look forward to having that at our own level. We'll try to make sure that we influence it at our own respective, at the National Assembly to the best of our abilities. Though we might be young there, but I think we have a lot of influence at the Assembly. Also with the leadership of Honorable Njai, she is well known in this particular domain. She is known to be an to push things forward when it comes to youth and women specifically. So I think you have the right resources at your disposal. So we look forward to having the document and then see ways to take it forward. Thank you.
I have to come last because I arrived late. But notwithstanding, I just want to seize this opportunity to apologize. By the way, Assalamu alaikum to each and everyone present here. And Mr. MC, I will indeed stand on the protocols, but will observe my comrades from Parliament and from the city for that matter, and also my brother, Mr. Carr, and the boss lady. Thank you for the invitation. By the way, I am also indeed honored, like they said already, to be here today, to be part of this important assembly, because it is very fundamental. We had a lot of engagements today. That is why we could not make it early. We were in another program, but we also believe that it is equally very important to be here today, especially when it comes to the subject matter for today. And before going further, I will also want to acknowledge the efforts by the Mayor of Banjul and her entire team, and also the consultant, through Rafaela, that is the Bloomberg philanthropist. I hope I pronounce it properly. Yes, I think it is always very important. As others have said, we gathered today for the Women and Girls Climate Change Conference 2025, which I believe it is the first of its kind. I've never witnessed this as a city dweller, and I think it is very important for us to recognize the disproportionate impact of climate change on women and girls, not only in the city of Banjul, but beyond, because it is also very important to put this into consideration. Understanding that there is rising sea level, speakers have already said, the reality is Banjul is below sea level, and we need to understand this. And these are the realities based on scientific, reports, which I believe it is very important as a city to come together and see how best we can save Banjul. We're talking about the submargin of Banjul if we don't put the required mechanisms in place in making sure that we save Banjul. It is very true. And the target is, I have some of my comrades here. We know that here against 2050, if we are not careful as a city, we might lose half of the city, not 10%, sir, but half of the city. That is if we don't put the proper mechanisms. So knowing that as part of the Apex Authority, it is indeed very important, as Honorable Njai for Banjul Central have said. Honorable Njai for Banjul South is leading Parliament that has to do with climate change, which we are also part of. And we are doing a lot together to see to it that not only the city of Banjul, but globally, how do we mainstream climate change? And bringing it with the context of women and girls again, I will just share with you key focus areas that has to do with one, climate justice, which is to ensure women and girls are at the forefront of climate decision-making process. It's very important, because we cannot talk about climate change when you are not part of the decision-making process. We cannot talk about making sure that women and girls are empowered when we are not part of the decision-making process. It doesn't make sense. So being part of the decision-making process will fundamentally create that avenue of women and girls to have the opportunity to say exactly how climate change is impacting or affecting them, so that they'll be able to come up with solutions. The sustainability livelihoods, which is to support climate change resilience. In Banjul, just few of us practice agriculture. And when I say so, I mean from my end, Tabakoro. We have a place, currently I believe one of the farmers is here. We are currently growing some, yams, some maize. It's happening in Tabakoro. But how do we expand that? Because the belief that we have is that we cannot grow anything in the city, which is the most unfortunate part. And most of the things, I can remember the last time my wife cooked ebe for me, and this yam is from the farm, the town. So these we should always put into consideration. We cannot talk about climate change without talking about health and well-being. It's very, very important, because these are things that we must put into consideration. And in doing so, we must protect the maternal and reproductive health and addressing increased risk of gender-based violence. It is very, very important. So these are things that we must also put into consideration. And the last but not the least, we cannot talk about women and girls in climate change without talking about education and awareness. And that is the truth. How can I talk about things when I am not aware or I have no clue of what I'm saying? At the end of the day, I end up messing up. I end up misinforming the public. I end up misinforming the people that will have access to those information. So these are things that we really need to work on, and we can do that by promoting climate education and awareness, especially among young people, which is indeed very important. So I believe with these regards, like what I'm looking at the program guys, but we just seize this opportunity to just share a few as part of our responsibility as representative, understanding that we are here to serve, we are here to address the needs and the concerns of the people. And also to make it clear, in Parliament as lawmakers, we are not, in Parliament as representative rather, we are not policy makers, we are lawmakers. We deal with policies. Bills come in the form of a policy to guide us so that we can make laws. That is what we do. At the same time, I hear people say Parliament is one arm of the government or one arm of the government. No, we are one arm of the state, because the government is the executive as long as we understand how things work. And in doing so, I always seize this opportunity to create this awareness so that people will know that Parliament is one arm of the state, because that is why we have all the powers as the apex authority to hold the government accountable, including the office of the president. In that regards, Assalamu alaikum.
Yeah. And then once again, I want you to put your hands together for the three honorables for this, great presentation. Of course, what they did is just is honorable of them not being included in the program guide. Yet when called upon, and they came to deliver. That's what we expect from our representatives. So thank you very much for this.